Welcome to Strange, revealing strange stories of the paranormal, bizarre coincidence, and unusual phenomena. I'm Chris Batchelor. Thank you for listening. You can find out more about Strange Podcast and connect with us on Twitter and Facebook by visiting strangepodcast.com. In this episode, we unravel the mystery of the Devil's Footprints.
This is Strange Podcast.
The mysterious footprints, which appeared overnight in heavy snowfall in southern Devon in 1855, have never been adequately explained. According to contemporary reports, they stretched for over 100 miles and went through solid walls and haystacks, appearing on the other side as if there was no barrier at all. The extent of the footprints may have been exaggerated at the time, and they may have been caused by freak atmospheric conditions. But in truth, the footprints, if that is what they were, still remain a complete mystery. This statement has been taken from a local newspaper report printed at the time. It appears on Thursday night last, there was a very heavy snowfall in the neighbourhood of Exeter and South Devon. On the following morning, the inhabitants of the above towns were surprised at discovering the footmarks of some strange and mysterious animal, endowed with the power of ubiquity, as the footprints were to be seen in all kinds of unaccountable places. On the tops of houses and narrow walls, in gardens and courtyards enclosed by high walls and palings, as well as in open fields. It soon became clear that the phenomenon was widespread, and some of the more scientifically minded examined the prints in detail. One naturalist sketched some of the marks and measured the distance between them. It was found to be 8.5 inches. This spacing seemed to be consistent wherever the tracks were measured. It was also noted that the way in which they were set out, one in front of the other, suggested a biped rather than a creature walking on 4 legs. Some clergymen suggested that the prints belonged to the devil, who was roaming the countryside in search of sinners, while others rejected the idea as superstition. It's true that a feeling of unease had spread through some of the population, who watched carefully to see if the strange footprints would return. They didn't, and after a couple of days the news spread out of Devon and made the national newspapers. The phenomena sparked correspondence in some of the leading papers, including the Times and the Illustrated News. This brought more accounts to light and led to a plethora of speculation by eminent scientists and laymen alike. There is little first-hand evidence of this phenomenon. The only known documents came to light after the publication in 1950 of an article in the Transactions of the Devonshire Association, asking for further information about this event. This resulted in the discovery of a collection of papers belonging to Reverend H.T. Ellacombe, the vicar of Cliff St. George in the 1850s. These papers included letters addressed to the vicar from his friends, among them Reverend G.M. Musgrove. The draft of a letter to the Illustrated London News marked not for publication, and several apparent tracings of the footprints. Those tracings can be seen in the show notes at strangepodcast.com. Over many years, the noted researcher Mike Dash collated the available primary and secondary source material into a paper entitled The Devil's Hoof Marks, Source Material on the Great Devon Mystery, 1855, which was published in 14 studies in 1994. There is a link to that publication in the show notes on our website, strangepodcast.com. So what explanations and theories have been put forward for the incident? Some investigators are skeptical that the tracks really extended for over 100 miles, arguing that no one would have been able to follow their entire course in a single day. Another reason for skepticism is that the eyewitness description of the footprints varied from person to person. In his 14 Studies article, Mike Dash concluded that there was no one source for the hoof marks. Some of the tracks were probably hoaxes. Some were made by common quadrupeds such as donkeys and ponies, and some by wood mice. He admitted, though, that these cannot explain all the reported marks, and the mystery remains. Author Jeffrey Household suggested that an experimental balloon released by mistake from Devonport Dockyard in Plymouth had left the mysterious tracks by trailing two shackles on the end of its mooring ropes. His source was a local man, Major Carter, whose grandfather had worked at the Devonport Dockyard at the time. Carter claimed that the incident had been hushed up because the balloon also wrecked a number of conservatories, greenhouses and windows before finally descending to Earth in Honiton. While this could explain the shape of the prints, skeptics have disagreed about whether the balloon could have travelled such a random zigzag course without its trailing ropes and shackles becoming caught in a tree or similar obstruction. It's also often suggested that the footprints were merely a case of mass hysteria, caused by the sightings of various animal tracks and lumping them together as one. In a letter to the Illustrated London News in 1855, Reverend G.M. Musgrave wrote, "In the course of a few days a report was circulated that a couple of kangaroos escaped from a private menagerie at Sidmouth. It seems, though, that nobody ascertained whether the kangaroos had escaped, nor how they could have crossed the estuary, and Musgrave himself said that he only came up with the story to distract his parishioners' concerns about a visit from the devil." Reports of similar anomalous obstacle-unheeded footprints exist from other parts of the world, although none is of such a scale as that of the case of the devil's footprints. In fact, on the 13th of March 2009, the Daily Mail in the UK reported ancient mystery returns as Satan's hoofprints are spotted in Devon back garden. The report goes on to claim that in freshly laid snow, a new set of cloven hoof tracks in single file have been left in a back garden in Wolseley in Devon. This new case still remains unexplained. The devil's footprints remain an intriguing mystery that will only truly be solved if the phenomenon happens again, and can be examined more closely. The devil's footprints remain a truly strange case. If you would like to make comment on the case of the devil's footprints, you can on the episode page at strangepodcast.com. There you'll also find links to the sketches and articles previously mentioned in this episode. Don't forget you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook by going to strangepodcast.com. Until next time, thank you for listening.